there, David?
Yeah, ready.
All right, he's in. Okay, we do have David Nack. Senator, pleasant good evening to you, Senator David Nakhid.
Good evening to all the listeners. Mikee K, how you doing?
All right. Well, we just had Mr. Austin Jack Warner on, former government minister, and a man who, of course, played a very crucial role in taking this country to its first World Cup finals. And, he was making some comments about the recently concluded. Can you hear?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Yeah,
He was making comments about.
making some comments about the recently concluded Olympics and saying that, the fact of the matter is that once again, we are medalless. He says that athletes return home empty handed from another international sporting event. And he basically saying that the will is not there. There were more officials than athletes. And I just want to read something here, which I believe it's rather important, coming from the United Nations on many of these issues here. As far as the United Nations and how important one has to look at this. The UN has long recognized that young people are a major human resource for development and key agents for social change, economic growth, and technological innovation. There's a need for a collective and better understanding of what youth participation involves, how it can be implemented for all youth ages, and youth should also be encouraged to participate in issue-based programs that affect them, such as the education, social, protection, reproductive health, environment, etc. Now, taking that in consideration, where are we at this point in time with this current administration and dealing with those issues affecting our youth?
Well, to be quite honest, Mikey K, we are the lowest point we've ever been. There's never been such a deficit of resources when it comes to engaging our youth. And I don't mean what this government considers engagement. As far as this government is concerned, their engagement, their idea of engagement is to have events or to have expos. But policies, programs that will have a substantive effect on uplifting our youth and getting them involved and engaged, I think that is what probably Mr. Warner was alluding to. This government has cut funding for sport. They have cut funding for social programs, especially within deprived and poor communities. They've cut funding for PAN. They've cut funding for every single thing or every index that we can consider an upliftment for the youth of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is not by coincidence. That's not by accident. That is not because they are intellectually bankrupt. It's because it's a deliberate attempt on the PNM to have our young people, especially in the poor and disadvantaged communities, just be the fodder for the 1%, and then their fast food outlets, their retail stores, they haven't engaged. They cannot tell you one policy or program that came out of the Economic Recovery Committee that they touted. They cannot tell you one thing. You see Foster Cummins, the MP for La Hoqueta, Calparo, you see him every day putting up something on his Facebook, and they are all menial jobs, or all jobs that they are trying to catch up with. Jobs that serve, that cannot transfer generational wealth to our young people. But look at all the benefits and services that they give to their 1% financiers. They give them land to transfer in their name so they can have access to loan and financing. They give the 1% special services. They cut taxes for them. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, if anybody can tell me that we have to wait on Mikee K to read out a report from the United Nations to let us know how important the youth is to any country, then we know trouble, Mikee K.
Well,
I mean, we have an aging population. I was making that comment today. I went to by my uncles in Picton, and we have a seriously aging population. And there's a gap between that aging population and a huge amount of young people coming out into the system, aimless, hopeless, because the PNM has not been able to bridge that gap between that aging population and that population that needs to come into the system, into the mainstream. So what we have them doing, our young people, they are all involved in the informal economy. They are not involved in the formal economy because they have recognized, and we have to give them credit, Mikee K. Our young people have recognized that they have nothing to get under the PNM. So all they see for themselves is to look for it, a life of crime, to go into their own, trying to make their own businesses. And the government shut down 6,000 SMEs during the COVID. 6,000 SMEs. They have done nothing to revive it. And those SMEs, as you know, Mikee K, they are the backbone of our communities. And they are the ones that we can look forward to raising the level, economic level, and social level of our young people. So this government is not interested. We know that. We know that. The people know that. And we can see it. I mean, the Olympics was just a manifestation, a small manifestation that they have done nothing. If after 9 years, you can have a contingent, how many people we had, Mikey? I don't know. And Roberts is the boss for that. But I think, as you said, we had more officials than athletes.
Yeah. And just touching on a point that you made earlier, just to let the viewers know that total allocation for the ministry as a percentage of the national budget illustrated a decrease in the allocation to the Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs by 0.04% between the period 2016, 2017, and 2017, 2018. Now, we're talking about $500 billion has been spent in the last 9 years. Why was this not made a priority?
It was not made a priority for the reasons that I just gave you. This PNM government, they are not interested in the youth of the nation. They would rather meet the youth of the nation in the penal system than meet them in programs that can uplift them. The PNM has, listen, don't get tapped with all the narrative, the utopian narrative that the PNM has propagated for 52 years. The PNM, if we look at them historically, they have never done anything to uplift this country, especially the youth of this country. And I am saying that coming out of a PNM home, as you know, Mikee K. But they have never done nothing. All they have done, they've broken the hearts of our youth up and down. They've killed their dreams, and they continue to do so by relying consistently on the oil and energy sector. They have not diversified, but the youth is part of human resources, especially the youth, can be part of diversification, but they do not have the ideas in how they can do that. They do not have the idea how they can do it in sport tourism. Not only culture, like a lot of the 1% believe, they only want to see our youth playing some pan or playing some music. They cannot imagine our young people involved in manufacture, involved in trade, import, export, involved in agriculture in a substantive way. I'm not talking about this piecemeal agri-expo and all these things that they just pay lip service to. You cannot have 1% of our GDP be from the agricultural sector. 1%, Mikee K. When we are so dependent, when we have all this fertile land. But Rowley will come using the fact that he's an African or a self-professed African. I don't believe he is. He will come and make a song and dance about that we don't have enough land to plant. So we have to look for Ghana for yam. And I mean, he makes the most mundane, nonsensical statements that the media in Trinidad allow him to get away with. We have all 90,000 acres of land that we could use. We could put these youth in serious programs, not just giving them land looking for votes that like they have done. I mean, if we wanted, we could cut that $8 billion food import bill. We could cut that in half. We could cut that in half. You know what that would do? That would, first of all, keep foreign exchange, US, in the country. And second of all, will make us more self-subsistent as a nation when it comes to food.
And let me ask you this, Senator. I just want to enjoy. Now, what are some of the policies? Now, you're mentioning some stuff, and I think we're getting into policies, which is very important. I want to thank you for that, because I mean we're talking about just months away from a general election, and it could be sooner, it could be going the distance. We really don't know. But at this point in time, policies are very important. I'm certain that even those folks who are viewing the program at this time would like to know some of the policies or initiatives that you yourself would implement or see revive that may encourage future success of our nation's youth?
Well, first of all, you cannot build anything without putting resources into it. So first of all, you have to have special access to finance for our young people, especially coming out of the underprivileged, underserved communities. That's one. So people interested in small and medium enterprises, you just cannot tell them, okay, I'll give you a grant. You have to give them financing. You have to give them overdrafts. That means you have to have a discussion with the banks. Because as you know, when the banks know you are from a certain address, it is very difficult to get access to financing. And the PNM knows that. The whole country knows that. So you have to have a meaningful discussion between the central bank and the banks that can open access to financing for our young people coming out, that they can have meaningful businesses, meaningful jobs that don't close down after 1 week or 2 weeks. And that involves financing. How do you think the Syrian community, and all blessings to them, I don't want anybody to say I anti the community. I don't, how did the Chinese community, how did all the communities, whoever they may be, the Portuguese community, the French Creole, how did they by themselves? No, they had access to finances from the banks, and we have to create that avenue as well for our people coming out of the ghettos, from our people coming out of the black and underserved communities, out of the Indo-Chindogonians or up and down the East-West corridor. Else you're just going to have a revolving door of poverty. You're going to have a revolving door of poverty, and you're going to have this rising crime. I mean, crime does not happen in a vacuum. People worry and they want you to feel it's because of the parents, it's because of the communities, because of that and all. It's not because of that. Crime is a result of expectation, of poverty, people not having money to feed their families. And I'm not giving any license for any bandit or anybody who chooses to go that route. I'm the first one to say, stand your ground. Anybody come along my family, they have to deal with what I have. That's not the point, but we cannot keep meeting them in the penal system. We cannot keep meeting them only on the side of law enforcement. We have to put these people, young people, in a position to have meaningful jobs and a meaningful chance to transfer generational wealth.
Yeah, and let me ask you this, Senator. Let me interrupt. Let me ask you this, because you're making some very strong points there. What do you say to individuals who would say, well, you know, Senator Nakhid, nobody owe you anything. They don't owe you anything. They simply don't have to give you anything. If you find yourself in a situation that you're struggling, then many of us have been there before. You certainly should not turn to crime. You should, just walk a straight path. I mean, how realistic is this when people chime in and make those sorts of statements?
Not realistic at all. Because I spoke about expectation, and I explain what I mean. When young people from the ghettos and from the underserved communities look around them and see other people in the community, from other communities, getting a handout, and that's what they get. They get contracts from the government. What is that? That's not a handout. So when we have jackasses who went before and say how this political party putting money in the hands of people, of community leaders and so. Who are you going to put money in the hands of? So the community leaders in the Syrian community, or the Chinese community, or whatever community, French Creole community, they are not community leaders. So you want to enrich them, but you don't want to enrich the poor black boys who are trying to get out of a life of crime. No, you give them the resources and you monitor what they do. That's what you do, but you don't make blanket statements when you come out like a fool and make statements, and that's why we are where we are now, because people made those statements and they had traction in the media. Oh, you're giving money to community leaders who are going into crime. How you know that? How you know that? Who bringing in the drugs and the cocaine and the guns and all of that? The little black boy up in Laventilla by me in Picton? No, it's the same communities that you give all those government contracts who have that kind of wealth to bring in that money. So your argument is a circular one. Your logic is circular and wrong, as a matter of fact, and that is what has our government, our country in the state that we do, because we bought into that wrong narrative. Because as soon as you place in this country money in the hands of young black boys, even with direction, you have a kick up from the 1% and from the PNM.
And that's a very strong point. I mean, what stands out here and amazes me is that when you have these videos showing these young men who have been arrested and they're at the police station and people are like, yeah, good for them, look at them. And one would think that a government looking on and seeing this would say, you know what, let's see them in a different light. Let's see them on a podium where they're receiving a medal. Let's see them on the international stage. Let's see them in the academic front. But it seems as though it doesn't matter whether they're holding a gun or they're holding a degree. There seems to be no interest in what's going to happen to our young people in Trinidad and Tobago. And that's sad.
Well, how interested, exactly, Mikee K, how interested can this government be when you have 7,000 people who after CXC and CAPE and so, they are left to wander aimlessly. Nothing is done for them. There is no follow-up. What can you say when 43% of our young people, mostly black and African kids, who fail outright the SEA, and the government does nothing for that? They've cut funding to education, they've cut GATE, they have not improved infrastructure, they have built one school in Tobago. One school in Tobago. They have not built any in Trinidad. They have not upgraded facilities anywhere in Princestown, in Point Fortin, in East Port of Spain. They have closed down Piccadilly. They have closed down St. Philip's. I mean, come on, this government is a joke. And we know, the thing is, we know that. But it's the black bourgeoisie, these false African for a day people, who will come and parade themselves in emancipation, African Emancipation Day, while doing nothing for the hill, while doing nothing for the East-West Corridor, while doing nothing for their own communities, for people who look like them, who they profess to represent. I mean, for me, it's hypocritical, it's disgusting. And for me, to be honest, right now, we spectacularly failed at the Olympics, as my brother, Senator Arnold Roberts said, but it's more than this Olympics. I mean, that is just a manifestation, one of the manifestations of a corrupt, defunct PNM government that has to go, Mikee K. They have to go.
Yeah. Senator, I want to thank you so much for taking time out this evening. I hope that for the benefit of the next generation, that we get it right. I really and truly hope so. I mean, hopefully we can...
First you have to get, Mikee K, first you have to get it right at the polls. We cannot keep hoping and voting against our self-interest by voting the PNM. The PNM has shown that they're not for African people, they're not for the East-West Corridor, they're not for Indo-Trinbagonians. They're for who they are, we know who they're for. Look at the people who prospering, who making all the profits, the banks making millions of dollars of profit. But then look at the people at the lower end of the scale. And if these people who keep voting for the PNM because they have a little eat of food from the PNM, then I'm watching the country go down the drain. Then what can we do, Mikee K? All we can do is pray and hope and work. And we are working hard on the Kamala Prasad Bisasa. We're working as hard as we can to come into government.
Yeah. Senator, thank you so much again. Keep up the good work and best of luck to you and your entire team. It's always a pleasure.
You're very welcome, Mikee K. Good night to all your viewers. Thank you. Thank you.